The protest of students before the Ministry of Education continued again for the fifth day, today commencing from the physical and metaphorical heart of university life, Mother Teresa Square. Despite heeding to their demands and appearing at the roadside, the students have refused to dialogue with the Minister of Education and instead have added her resignation to the list of their demands. The Democratic Party has commemorated the 8th of December as Youth Day with an activity held in Student City, with Lulzim Basha saying the day honours the courage of the student uprising in 1990. Good evening, it's 6 o'clock on Saturday the 8th of December 2018. Welcome to the English edition of Aura News. My name is Alexandra and I'm here to bring you the day's top stories from across the country translated into English. In a move that showed a point of difference when compared to the previous days, today the students began their rally from the Mother Teresa Square, which also serves as the heart, both geographically and metaphorically, of university life in the country. Despite blocking roads around the country, the nationwide support for their plight has been unwavering. They continue their protest before the Ministry of Education to demand equal power in decision-making, improved living conditions in student dormitories, and a reduction in tuition fees by half. Citizens, families, and students from private universities have also joined the uprising. Despite being of a considerable size, the student protest has been peaceful, with participants choosing to thumb their nose at Prime Minister Edi Rama and Education Minister Lindita Nicola, with messages written on banners and posters. In an attempt to defuse the escalating situation of the protesting students, the Minister of Education, Lindita Nicola, today attempted to join their action at about noon. Despite having demanded for days that she face them on the road, the students refused to negotiate with the minister and blocked her way back into the office, forcing her to find an alternative entrance. During a phone call with Aura News journalists, Minister Nicola expressed confidence that, step by step, the moment for discussion and dialogue will be reached. I've been listening attentively for 3 days. I try to communicate calmly whenever I am given the opportunity. For the past 3 days, I have responded positively to every letter of request that comes to my door. For the past 3 days, I have sat ready and waiting for the students to enter and discuss their demands with me face to face. How do they possibly expect a resolution if they just continue to protest, but refuse to dialogue even when invited to discuss the requests? How can such a protest be for its stated purpose when there is no articulate representation willing to and able to dialogue with the government? I have heard some say, we do not negotiate. However, we have never mentioned negotiations, only dialogue. This is a serious confrontation in the public eye, and we must cooperate to address the problems raised. I finally hear the call below my window of Lindita, come out to the square. And so I went out, explains Lindita Nicola. I came out, and not only did they not tell me why I was called, but I was also rejected by the protesters. Okay, no problem, but then my question is simple. When will we sit to talk about these problems and coordinate the forces to deliver the solutions, posed Minister Nicola. The students of the University of Shkodra continued to be part of the protest today, demanding improvements to be made to the conditions offered and quality of education. Taking to the streets even as the rain fell from the Shkodran sky today, and despite it being the weekend, the students reiterated that their action will not stop until all demands have been met. Students in Kukas have now also committed to taking part in the action. While there is a list of requirements that has been presented by a unified national student front, demands that have been articulated strongly and clearly to the Ministry of Education. Additionally, each of the universities have their own specific demands. Students of Shkodra warned that now that the protest has begun, there is no going back, and demanded that the political parties refrain from using them for political gain. In a show of support to the students, many more citizens came out and fared the cold weather in order to join the protest. In support of them, a group of young citizens from Kukas protested before the former Tirana University branch in Kukas, which closed 4 years ago. One of their demands includes reopening this institution. Following almost a week of protests, the number of demands being made by the students is increasing. Now, in addition to the requirements for improved living conditions in dormitories, increased representation in the administration and a reduction by half in tuition fees, students are also demanding the resignation of the current Education Minister, as well as for university professors to undergo vetting. Today also saw them publish a list of names of professors who they accuse of accepting bribes in return for passing grades in university exams. They maintained their stance that the protest remains apolitical, even as the residents of Astir sought to join the protest, a request which was refused by the students. A student cordon preventing the Astir residents from joining the protest they were holding in front of the Ministry of Education. If residents of Astir want to join us in the protest, they should come as citizens who call for the same demands as us and do so from the commencement of the protest in the morning, responded the students. Taking somewhat of an offence to the lack of inclusion, one Astir resident sought understanding in saying our protest is in the afternoon. We have come for solidarity. Our requirements are economic and we are protecting our dwellings. The Democratic Party commemorated today as Youth Day from Student City, where 28 years ago the student movement started and brought about the collapse of the communist dictatorship and pluralism in Albania. Democratic Party Chair Lul Zimbasha said that this is the day when we honour the students of December 1990 for their courage that led to the political freedom of the Albanian people, while praising Azem Hajdari, who Basha determines as the spirit of protest. Meanwhile, one of the main figures to emerge from the protest of students in 1990, former Prime Minister Sali Berisha recalled the emotions of those days and referred to the students of the 90s as undefeated heroes. He gave the same assessment for current student protests. Today we have a 2nd December. Like never before, the universities of the country have launched a battle against a regime called aristocracy, one of the worst regimes. This is the regime of Edi Rama, who has centred all the power in his own hands. This regime has impoverished Albanians and forced them to leave the country. This student movement is raising the hopes of Albanians. In the strongest expression of support, I call on the Albanians to support the students in every way possible. Do not listen to those manipulators who seek to distract you, said Sali Berisha. The Democrats' activity continued with tributes and honours near the statue of the leader of democracy, Azem Hajdari. December 8th has been celebrated as a national holiday since 2009, when a decision was made by the Albanian Parliament to honour the students of the December 1990 movement and, in turn, all Albanian youth. Although construction of the new road has been suspended, the Albanian Road Authority has reported that the full assessment of properties affected by the new Ring Road project has been completed. The results of the verifications depict that the total number of objects affected by the construction project across all 3 sectors reaches a total value of 195. Of these, 71 properties are legalised and their owners equipped with documents which attest to this, while the remaining 124 are not. The Albanian Road Authority has so far carried out measurements and verifications in the field of 59 objects under the framework of the expropriation procedures. There are 12 properties which remain awaiting evaluation, for which the owner holds the required documentation, and for the purpose of completing these verifications, the procedures will continue over the coming days. Meanwhile, the Albanian Road Authority has been in dialogue with those citizens whose dwellings are partially affected by the project. The Albanian Road Authority has surveyed 72 objects for cases where the citizens agree to such an assessment. The purpose of this is to determine the severity of the impact on the premise from the project, as well as to confirm structural integrity of the dwelling post-project implementation by engineers. The prepared documentation and the entire technical process will be monitored by the respective municipal units and the National Territory Defence Inspectorate. From this category, 27 premises are legalised with ownership documents, while a further 45 are not. At the conclusion of this process, the number of properties which have been disqualified from legalisation by Aluisni has reached 74. The Albanian Road Authority informed the media that work is proceeding normally throughout the segment from Palati Mëshëgjeta to Eagles Square. In addition, they confirmed they have only authorised the suspension of construction activity in the area of lot number 1, whereas state institutions will continue their activity as normal along this segment, which involves clearing space for project implementation. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join us again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Aura News, thank you and have a lovely weekend.